Everyone knows about 410. The year Alaric led the Visigoths through the gates of Rome. 3 days of looting. The Eternal City, sacked for the first time in 800 years. St. Jerome said the whole world perished in one city. Augustine began the City of God in its aftermath. History books remember it as one of the defining catastrophes of the ancient world. And it was a catastrophe. Do not let what follows minimize that. But what if 410 was not the worst thing that happened to Rome in the 5th century? What if the event that actually broke the Western Empire, that made its survival structurally impossible, happened 29 years later in a city most people have never connected to Rome's fall at all? This is why the fall of Carthage in 439 was worse than the sack of Rome in 410. The city was Carthage. The event was its capture by the Vandals in October 439. It produced no famous poems, no Augustan writing in the ruins. It was almost quiet. The news didn't even reach Rome until the following spring, because the shipping lanes had closed for winter before the city fell. What was taken in 439 was not a symbol. It was Rome's food supply. Rome was a city of nearly 1 million people that produced almost none of its own food. That city consumed somewhere between 150,000 and 270,000 tons of grain every single year. Every day, Romans ate food grown on another continent, loaded onto ships, sailed across hundreds of miles of open water, transferred to river barges, hauled up the Tiber, and distributed through a vast network of warehouses. If that system stopped, for any reason, Rome stopped. The emperors knew this. When a grain shortage threatened in 22 AD, Tiberius warned the Senate that disruption of the supply meant the utter ruin of the state. A city of 1 million cannot forage. It cannot wait. It could be governed and policed and entertained, but only as long as the ships kept arriving. Rome's power and Rome's vulnerability were the same thing, which means the question that matters is, where did the grain come from? In the 2nd century AD, Rome's grain came from several provinces. Egypt supplied roughly a third. Sicily and Sardinia provided more. The province of Africa, centered on Carthage, provided the rest. No single source was irreplaceable. If one had a bad harvest, others compensated. Then something permanent changed. In 330 AD, Constantine founded Constantinople on the Bosphorus. The new eastern capital needed feeding. The obvious source was Egypt. So Egyptian grain was redirected. The ships that had sailed to Rome now sailed to Constantinople. By the late 4th century, Alexandria was shipping roughly 220,000 tons a year to the new capital. The Western Empire received essentially none of it. This left the Western Empire with one critical grain supplier, North Africa, Carthage. After 330, there was no fallback. Egypt fed Constantinople. North Africa fed Rome. There was nothing behind North Africa. No comparable province, no alternative supply line. The Western supply system had been running on a single source for over a century before the Vandals arrived. Now consider 410 against that backdrop. Alaric's Visigoths looted Rome for 3 days, then moved on. They did not seize the harbors. They did not take the warehouses or the grain administration. The supply chain was disrupted, then restored. What 410 wounded was Rome's self-image. The artery was intact. Gaiseric had been moving toward Carthage for a decade. A treaty in 435 was supposed to hold the line. He broke it on October 19th, 439. Carthage fell. When Gaiseric took Carthage, he did not just take a city. He took the Western Empire's food supply and its tax base simultaneously. North African grain revenue had funded the Western government's armies and infrastructure. Without it, the budget collapsed. Without the budget, the armies shrank. Without the armies, nothing could be protected. 3 Roman expeditions tried to retake North Africa in 441, 460, and 468. All 3 failed. The last was one of the largest fleets ever assembled by the Eastern Empire. Gaiseric destroyed it with fire ships. After 468, there was no realistic hope of restoring the Western grain supply. In the decades that followed, Rome's population may have fallen by as much as 80%. Pottery collapsed in quality and distribution. Coins vanished from daily use. Roof tile manufacture ceased. No European city matched Rome's supply scale again until London reached 1 million people, around 1800. That gap is 13 centuries. When Alaric sacked Rome in 410, the whole world mourned. The event was felt, named, understood as catastrophic. When Gaiseric took Carthage in 439, the news arrived late. No famous elegies. The Roman population did not yet understand what had happened. They would understand it over the following decades as the ships stopped arriving, as the warehouses emptied, as the population began its long, quiet decline. The sack of 410 is famous because it was visible. Violent and sudden, it happened to a symbol. The fall of 439 was quiet because it was structural. It happened to a system. And systems, when they break, don't produce ruins that last. They produce absences. Absences of food. Absences of people. Absences that take centuries to even name. That is why October 19th, 439 was worse than August 24th, 410. Not because it was louder, because it was the wound that did not close. If the fall of Carthage tells us anything, it's that what holds a civilization together is rarely what we put on its coins. For a closer look at the systems that feed the city, this next video explores how Rome fed its population. If you liked this video, check out the link in the description for a free copy of the research notes.